Oh, that necklace? We didn't have enough money after Mom went to the hospital. So I sold it. You don't mind that much, right? Stunned, I was left speechless by her unapologetic grin. That was something I cherished. It was filled with many memories. Yet, my sister-in-law had sold it. That precious necklace was no longer with me. I felt an overwhelming sense of loss. Seeing me devastated, Angela sneered with delight. If you don't like it, why don't you leave this house? You're just a parasitic wastrel. Angry and sad, I clenched my fists so tightly that my nails dug into my palms. I won't forgive her. I will never forgive her. She casually sold my belongings and mocked me, only indulging in the sweet life at my expense. I had been enduring it all this time, but that would end today. I turned my back on my sneering sister-in-law, keeping my rising anger inside, and resolved firmly. I took out the documents I had been hiding in my desk drawer in order to execute that plan. It was the first step on the path my sister-in-law would now take. However, gaping and laughing, she had no idea. She didn't know that she was about to walk through hell. I am Gina. I'm a 33-year-old housewife living with my husband Paul and mother-in-law at my in-laws' home. I also work as a blogger. Between household chores, I started writing about cooking and daily life on my blog, which gradually gained attention, and now I earn over $10,000 a month just from blogging. Initially, the growing attention made me anxious and nervous. But receiving positive comments and warm greetings during a book signing released my tension. And now I enjoy updating my blog creatively. My gentle husband and kind mother-in-law support my work, leading to a fulfilling daily life. However, there's one troubling matter: Angela, my sister-in-law who lives nearby. Oh, isn't that Gina? Still at home today? Just writing your meaningless blog? What a luxurious life for an unemployed HUD. She often comes to our house, ridiculing my blogging. Intentionally spills tea and makes me clean it up, and calls me unemployed as a way to harass me. Even though my blog now earns a lot of money, Angela became aware of its existence long before it gained attention. She doesn't know how much I earn from the blog now. I've avoided talking about it as much as possible because I don't want to discuss money with her. And I usually ignore her sarcastic remarks about my posts. It always irritates me, but I've never complained because my mother-in-law dotes on Angela. Despite her terrible personality, she is still her beloved daughter. For my kind mother-in-law, who treats me like her own daughter. And because Angela is also my husband's sister. I have never responded to her sarcasm or harassment and have always endured it. Then one day, a large amount of luggage suddenly arrived at our house. Several large boxes and even furniture were delivered, and upon checking, the sender was Angela. I'm living here from today. That's fine, right? It was my house, after all. She had lost her part-time job, couldn't pay her apartment rent, and decided on her own to move back without discussing it with anyone. Not even my mother-in-law or Paul. Today, I have to start living with Angela. The shock was like being hit with a blunt object. Despite the suddenness, my mother-in-law, happy that her beloved daughter had returned, welcomed her, and even my husband, concerned about her having nowhere to go, accepted it reluctantly. Since Paul and mother-in-law agreed, and it was indeed Angela's childhood home, I reluctantly accepted her moving in. However, it marked the beginning of hell for me. Angela was now living in the same house. Just the thought was headache-inducing. Yet she went further by evicting me from my own room, which she arrogantly claimed as hers, and began living there. It had been the largest room, which was vacant when I started living in the in-laws' house. Paul and my mother-in-law had suggested I use it, but Angela took it over simply because it had been her room originally. I had no choice but to clear out a small room that had turned into a storage space. And to make it my own. The plan was to endure this until she found a new job and saved enough money to move out. However, Angela showed no signs of job hunting. Instead, since moving in, she had been idly passing each day. "Hey, Gina. You're free, right? Clean my room. I won't forgive you if there's any dust left. I actually need to go shopping soon. Stop complaining, unemployed. Just clean up. And while you're shopping, can you pick this up for me? There's a new product out." She pushed chores onto me while doing nothing herself, lounging on her bed eating snacks. Despite assigning me shopping tasks, she had never given me any money. Her room was a mess. With clothes strewn everywhere, it was unclear if they were clean or dirty, and empty snack wrappers left all over the table. Finally, seeing Angela's selfishness, my mother-in-law and Paul apologized on her behalf. But they didn't seem to scold Angela specifically. It appeared they had given up on improving her behavior as she had always been like this. Yet, the issues didn't end there. Angela was always short on money, and my mother-in-law, feeling sorry for her, gave her pocket money. This made me feel utterly frustrated. I understand that my mother-in-law was worried and wanted to give her pocket money. However, I could only sigh at her overly indulgent behavior towards Angela. Not paying rent, not contributing to household expenses, not doing any chores, and still receiving pocket money only encouraged Angela's dependency. Despite expressing my concerns that Angela was taking advantage of the situation, my mother-in-law anxiously said, "She is really struggling. I can't just ignore her." Which made it hard for me to argue further. With each passing day, Angela's selfish behavior became more and more unbearable. I am not her maid. While she comfortably lounged around, eating snacks and dropping crumbs everywhere, I reluctantly grabbed the vacuum cleaner. Living with this unresolved stress, my dissatisfaction continued to grow. However, a particular incident pushed me to a significant decision. It happened when Angela, as usual, tasked me with shopping. The sound of a teacup shattering echoed through the room. Soon after, a dull thud was heard. "Mother. Mother. Are you okay?" As she stood up from the table to make tea, my mother-in-law suddenly staggered and fell forward. I rushed to her side, tapping her shoulder and calling her name, but there was no response. Although Angela seemed shocked, she did nothing but stand there stunned. I quickly called an ambulance, but she said, "It sounds like a hassle. I won't go to the hospital." I couldn't believe it. Doesn't she care about her own mother? I left Angela at the house and accompanied my mother-in-law in the ambulance. While waiting for the examination, I called Paul, who hurried to the hospital. What if our kind mother-in-law wouldn't wake up? While I was almost in tears, Paul, who might have been worried the most, held me tight, comforting me. It was unbearable, but I was relieved when my mother-in-law woke up safely. Fortunately, her condition wasn't serious, and she was diagnosed with anemia. Though it seemed to be just anemia, considering her age, further tests were included, and she had to be hospitalized until her anemia improved. With the increase in hospital visits and household chores previously done by my mother-in-law, my life became much busier. There were no issues with taking care of her. Paul helps with the household chores in between visits to the hospital. I adjusted my work schedule, slowing down the pace of updates. Thankfully, my blog had a strong following, so taking a slight break had minimal impact. Paul and I were working together to make time for everything, yet Angela didn't help at all. Nor did she show any concern for her mother. "Hey, what about dinner? I'm hungry." "Hurry up. Instead, she complained to me as soon as I returned from visiting the hospital. "I'm sorry, Angela. I haven't prepared dinner yet." "You still haven't made it? You're really slow." "And Gina, you're using my brother's money to send to your parents, right? That's just wasting money. You should work more. You're unemployed after all." She returned to her room with a disdainful look. I wanted to retort that she was the real unemployed for not even visiting her own mother. Paul and I had decided to send money to my parents as a token of gratitude for raising me. It was Paul who suggested this. However, due to recent poor performance at his company, we no longer had the extra money to send to my parents. Now, thanks to the success of my blog, I'm providing for my parents myself. It was true that Angela didn't know this. But it was ridiculous that she brought up irrelevant matters while ignoring her own faults. While enduring Angela's whims at home, the hospital where my mother-in-law stayed became a place where I could breathe. Angela avoided visiting, finding it bothersome. However, my mother-in-law began to wish for Angela's visit, who had never been showing up. I wonder if Angela is okay. Is she too busy? I'd love to see her. Seeing her lonely expression made me feel terrible. She seemed to shrink with sadness. I didn't want to see her sad expression. So, I managed to persuade the reluctant Angela to visit the hospital just once. "Angela. Thank you for coming. I'm so happy." Upon seeing Angela, her face brightened considerably. Indeed, seeing her children must have been the best medicine. Though it was tough to bring her, it was worth it because I could see my mother-in-law so happy. I hoped Angela would say something caring to her. However, she dropped a shocking remark. "You know, this is really bothersome." Her irritated voice growled. The atmosphere in the room instantly froze. What? She was stunned by the unexpected words. What did she just say? Ignoring the dismay of my mother-in-law and me, Angela continued loudly. "I said it's a hassle you collapsing. I didn't come to visit willingly. I'm busy. If you can't give me money while you're lying here, what's the point of you living? Shouldn't old people just hurry up and die? How could you, Angela?" Her eyes teared up, on the verge of crying. That's quite a way of saying it. How could she say something so cruel, especially to a mother who cared deeply about her? Clearly she was not busy because she had been lounging around every day. I had endured so much, but I couldn't hold back and glared at her. "Angela, wasn't that too harsh? Your mother has always been worried about you. I don't care. Why should I be scolded by the unemployed? It was a huge hassle even to come here. I really regret coming." With a frustrated expression, she stormed out of the room. Only my mother-in-law's sobs remained. She had looked forward to seeing Angela, but this was too much. This was utterly unacceptable. I couldn't let Angela's whims go unchecked any longer. If she was going to behave like that, I had my own thoughts. When I told my mother-in-law the plan I had been quietly considering, she readily agreed. I've opened my eyes. I've indulged her too much. I'm sorry, Gina. I support your plan. Angela's previous attitude clearly hurt her deeply. It was understandable, given the severity of her words. That evening, I told Paul about what happened at the hospital, and even he, usually so mild-mannered, showed his anger. Angela said that to Mom? That's terrible. I'll help you with the plan. I received a firm nod and a positive response from him. Thus, with the cooperation of the two of them, I proceeded with my secret plan. Preparing for the plan required a lot of work. As a result, I was often away from home. As usual, Angela did nothing. So, in addition to taking care of the house and visiting my mother-in-law and blogging, more tasks were added. But this plan absolutely had to be completed. One night, after finishing my tasks for the day, I returned home exhausted. When I got to my room and tried to relax, I noticed something off about my jewelry stand. My cherished necklace was missing. It had been there in the morning. I panicked and checked around, looked through other jewelry cases and my bags, but couldn't find it. That necklace was a precious gift from Paul on our anniversary during a trip. I was so happy that he had picked it out for me, and for a while, I wore it everywhere. Although I have more jewelry now, I still cherish and often wear or look at that necklace. What if I've lost it? While frantically searching my room, one possibility came to mind. Angela. She sometimes took my jewelry without asking. Maybe she took that necklace while I was away. I had to get it back immediately, so I went to her room to ask about it. Angela, have you seen my necklace? The one with a small diamond. Initially, Angela looked annoyed that I had suddenly entered her room. But she admitted to it nonchalantly. Oh, that one? I didn't have enough money after Mom went to the hospital, so I sold it. It didn't make much money, but it helped a little bit, I guess. I was dumbfounded. She sold the necklace? I couldn't believe it. What does that mean? I had thought it might be used without my permission, but I never imagined it would be sold. And just for her allowance. A profound sense of loss and anger welled up within me, and I confronted her. You sold it. That was a precious gift from Paul. Give it back. It was filled with so many memories. Huh? It's gone because I sold it. Besides, if he bought it, it's not really yours, right? As long as it was here, it belonged to us. Ignoring my dazed expression, she sneered with a twisted face. The necklace was no longer in my possession. Even if Paul had bought it, it was never Angela's to claim. I was frustrated. I was devastated that I couldn't protect a precious gift from my husband. If you don't like it, why don't you leave this house? You're just a parasitic wastrel. She gleefully taunted me. I felt a strange clarity as anger boiled inside me. Arguing here would be pointless. She wouldn't care whatever I would say. With Angela's mocking voice behind me, I clenched my fists tightly and headed to Paul's room that evening. Seeing my serious face, he listened to the story of the necklace and nodded solemnly. My mind was made up. I won't forgive her. I will never forgive her. We will execute our plan soon. A few days later, when Angela was out, I moved to a new home. After some time, I received a call from her. She had been billed for hospital fees, and the bank had contacted her about unpaid utility bills. She complained and demanded I sort it out. I suggested she pay it herself, but she insisted I handle it. Angela, who had been lazing around every day, had no money to pay. So she had no choice but to rely on us. I had been waiting for this moment. Let's meet and discuss this in detail, Angela. I informed Angela of the new address and summoned her to this location. As I waited at the gate of the house, I saw her approaching with a displeased look. Upon spotting me, she quickened her pace with wide strides. I faced her with a cool expression. She glared at me sharply and then gave a disdainful look at the new house behind me. What is this about, calling me to a place like this? Are we going to talk at your friend's house or what? This is why the unemployed have no common sense. This is our new house. Actually, we've moved. What? Moved. She looked at the new house with a dumbfounded expression. It's no wonder she was surprised. The new house is a much larger two-story building compared to the slightly cramped, decades-old two-story house where the in-laws lived. There's even a garden, which the in-laws' house doesn't have. A new house. You're kidding, right? It's no joke. Look at the nameplate. As Angela stared in disbelief, I pointed out the nameplate engraved with our surname. Paul's surname is unusual. Even Angela, sharing the same surname, could easily verify that this was indeed my new house. She checked the nameplate, her eyes rounding, and her mouth opening and closing like a fish, visibly shaken. Her gaze then shifted to my neck. Wait, that necklace, I sold it. On my neck gleamed the necklace Paul had given me for our anniversary. With a smile, I responded to her remark. I had tracked down the pawnshop where she had sold it and bought the necklace back. I led the stunned Angela to the entrance to explain in detail. It seemed she finally grasped what had happened. Unable to believe I had moved to a new house, she began to yell. There's no way Paul's salary could afford a house like this. What kind of dirty tricks did you use? Tell me. She advanced on me as if to grab me by the collar. I remained utterly calm, looking at her coldly. As I told you, I am a blogger. It turns out I'm quite famous. My blog alone brings in over $10,000 a month. I've also published a few books, so the royalties are quite substantial. Over $10,000 a month. Her words faltered for a moment. Smiling, I continued. Paul's company is having a tough time right now. I'm paying for my mother-in-law's hospital bills, our living expenses, and even the allowances to my parents. But we must help each other in times of need. We're family, after all. You're paying for everything. Even when we went shopping. Yes, I paid for the groceries and even for the things you forced me to buy. Oh. Angela, what's wrong? You look pale. Are you feeling ill? Angela, now pale after learning everything, staggered back. She hugged herself with her arms and trembled like a frightened deer. The fact that I, whom she had treated like a maid and scorned, was bearing most of the expenses. And now, I have moved away from her. Her carefree life was inevitably coming to an end. Moreover, she would need to find a job immediately to maintain her current lifestyle. Realizing this fact too late, Angela, her face pale, approached me with tears at the corners of her eyes. Gina, I'm sorry for everything. Please, let me live here too. Aren't we family? I firmly decline. How can someone who sells others' belongings and treats them like a burden be considered family? I coldly rejected her plea, looking at her dispassionately. It was too late for any appeals. I had no intention of forgiving her. Sensing from my cold attitude that living together was out of the question. She trembled with anger as soon as she was rejected. She contorted her face in rage and thrust her hand toward me. How can you treat me like this when I'm asking for help? Fine. Then I'll manage Mom's pension. You're a stranger. Give me the bank book right now. I was astounded by her continued attempts to seize control of the money. Now she was after her mother's pension. The thought of her never choosing to earn her own living gave me a headache. But that was fine. We had already had a solution to that matter. Unfortunately, my husband is already managing your mother's pension. You have no role in this, Angela. What did you say? She clenched her teeth in frustration as her hope for the pension evaporated. Recalling my mother-in-law's words at the hospital, I informed her more calmly. Moreover, your mother says she's had enough of your attitude and wants to cut ties with you. So, the real outsider here is you. Angela looked incredulous, shaking her head slowly. Had she forgotten her own words to my mother-in-law? Even after being told this, she started making a scene. Me, an outsider. What does that even mean? Why am I the bad one? Why does it always have to be me suffering? It's all because of Gina, the slacker. Things got weird here after you came. It's not my fault. It's your fault. Her tantrum was childlike. The way she was shouting nonsense was truly embarrassing. It was about time to show her the door, given her endless greed for other people's money. I glared at her and said sternly, "Angela, would you please leave? This is my precious family's home. I won't call her sister anymore." Angela choked up, throwing a resentful look before she scurried away from the scene. Thus, the plan to move to the new house was successfully completed. Finally relieved, I took a deep breath in the fresh-smelling room of the new house. Later, I heard she had begged my mother-in-law for forgiveness. She cried, claiming she was not at fault, and had been deceived by a good-for-nothing, begging for help. However, from the beginning of the plan, my mother-in-law had already decided how to deal with Angela. "Angela, I really loved and cherished you. But hearing your true feelings in the hospital, I understand now. You've always thought of your mother this way. Please let me cut ties. It'll be refreshing to be away from such an elderly person about to die, won't it?" That's how she rejected Angela. Perhaps because my mother-in-law had always been lenient. Angela's response was to cry out loudly and cause a scene in the hospital, resulting in her being expelled and banned. After being discharged, my mother-in-law moved to our new house, and we decided to sell and dispose of the in-laws' house. Angela stayed at the old house screaming, "This is my home. Don't take my home away," until the last day, which led to a call to the authorities. Since the house was in a good location, it quickly found a new tenant. But Angela harassed and caused noise issues for the new tenant, ultimately involving the police. Angela finally faced the consequences of her actions, but by then, she had lost her home, been abandoned by her family, and was left wandering the streets, now resorting to demeaning ways to get by. It was a case of reaping what she sowed. Meanwhile, Paul's company recovered, and we found ourselves financially comfortable again. Around the same time, we had another piece of joyful news. I was pregnant. The joy on Paul's and my mother-in-law's faces when I shared the news was astonishingly great. Having safely given birth, our child is now growing up healthily, showered with love from the two of them, and I am enjoying fulfilling days of parenting and work.